Welcome back to part 3 of our operator interface overview. Once again, this is Dan from EDM Academy, and in this video we'll be covering the remaining interface of operator. On the right side, operator has 3 modulation options: an LFO, a filter envelope, and a pitch envelope. Let's look at the LFO first. When we select the LFO tab, the middle section displays a whole new set of controls pertaining to the LFO. On the right side of this display, we can tell the LFO what to control. The letter buttons will assign the LFO to control an oscillator's pitch. The filter button assigns the LFO to the filter. Underneath the Destination A section is a Destination B section with a drop-down menu. Here we can assign the LFO to a large variety of controls. Each of these sections has an independent slider acting as a dry-wet control for the LFO. Underneath the LFO assignments are 2 MIDI options. The rate to key slider allows note pitch to influence the speed of the oscillator. The velocity to amount slider allows MIDI velocity to control the range of the LFO. On the left of the display is an envelope that controls the LFO. Most of these controls have already been covered. However, there is an additional end option that controls the height of the envelope's release stage. On the tab itself, we have 2 knobs and a couple menus. The first menu selects which type of wave the LFO uses. The second menu selects the range of speeds available to the rate knob, which in turn controls the exact speed of the LFO. When sync mode is enabled, the rate knob will control which denomination of beats your LFO follows. The retrigger button forces the LFO to start over from the beginning each time a new note is played. The amount knob controls how drastically the LFO affects its target destination. The LFO can be turned on and off by selecting the button on the left side of the tab. That's all for the LFO features. Now let's look at the filter tab. To see a display of the filter itself, click on the box next to the word filter. The filter type can be selected with the drop-down menu on the filter tab. Available filters include low pass, high pass, band pass, and notch filters. The frequency and resonance of the filter can be controlled with their corresponding knobs, or you can click and drag on the filter display. The Wave Shaper menu contains 4 options that will drastically change your sound as you filter it. When using a Wave Shaper mode, the drive slider controls the amount of distortion added to your signal. Just like the LFO, the filter also contains an envelope feature that affects the filter frequency. All of these controls have been covered, except for the envelope amount slider, which controls how much the envelope affects your filter. Lastly, you can have velocity and note pitch influence the filter's frequency position with these sliders. Okay, now let's look at the pitch envelope tab. The pitch envelope is assigned the same way as the LFO. Note that when not using the pitch envelope to control the pitch of an oscillator, it functions as a normal envelope with the ability to affect a variety of controls. At the bottom right of the display is our glide option. In glide mode, note pitches will gradually glide into each other as they play. To control the timing of this effect, use the time slider. Once an envelope is set, it will not function until the pitch envelope knob is turned. You can use this knob to set the depth of the envelope and also to invert it. Also on this tab are 2 global knobs. The spread knob controls the stereo width of your sound. The transpose knob will change the global tuning of your synth. And finally, let's take a closer look at the Routing tab. As discussed earlier, the oscillator routing options are along the top of the display. In the middle are a series of MIDI routing options, allowing you to set MIDI controls for different functions of operator. MIDI velocity, aftertouch, and the mod wheel can all be routed to both a destination A and B, whereas key and pitch bend information can only be routed to a destination A. The amount of control these MIDI messages have can be changed via their respective amount sliders. Also in this middle area is a global feature allowing note pitch to influence the speed of every envelope in operator. The amount of influence can be controlled with the time slider. Along the bottom are a few global controls. The number of voices can be set in the voice menu. This limits the number of notes that can be played at the same time. The retrigger option forces notes that are already playing to retrigger instead of generating an additional voice. This option is mostly unnoticeable, but will save CPU power. The interpolate and anti-alias options are algorithms that make operator produce a smoother sound. Turning these off will save CPU. Next to these options is a global panning control. The pan to key option will pan higher pitch notes toward the right speaker channel and the lower ones toward the left. And finally, there is a random panning control which will randomly pan notes played based on how high the slider is set. And that concludes our operator interface overview. Now that the interface has been covered, stay tuned for some sound design tutorials using this device. As always, remember to subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know which tutorials you want to see next. That's all for now. To learn more about Ableton devices and for more video tutorials, visit edmacademy.net.